Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Ian the Reader. Today I have a very exciting book review for you guys. I am so pumped to be talking to you guys today about the book In the Grave Where the Bones Are Still Wet, which is the second book in the Paisley Mott series by Kalvin Ellis. The first book in the series being In the Hills Above the Gristmill, which is a fantastic mystery horror book that I read back in, I want to say like 2022 maybe, and then I decided to reread the first book when I found out that the second book was coming out this month, and I'm so glad I did because these books are absolutely incredible. Before we jump into the review, I did just want to let you guys know that this is a self-published book by a self-published author, and I truly do think that he deserves your support. So I will leave links down below to order the first book and the second book if you'd like to. I highly recommend the series. I think it is really good, and I totally think you should support this self-published author. Okay, so what is this book about? This series follows Paisley Mott, who is a supernatural investigator of sorts, but in actuality, she is a vlogger. She's somebody who has a YouTube channel and she live streams and basically goes about investigating supernatural crimes or events, trying to debunk them or just investigate them to find out more. In the first book, she travels to a small town where there's supposedly a Sasquatch, or a Bigfoot basically, who is going around and killing people. And the first book is all about that mystery, and it takes place in this small town. You meet a lot of different characters, but what's interesting in the first book is because she's new to the town and you don't really know what's going on, everyone is a suspect. She doesn't know who is doing this. There are a lot of relationships and kind of small town politics at play, and there are a lot of weird things going on in the town and mysteries, and so none of the characters can really be trusted. And so in some ways with the first book, Paisley felt almost isolated in that way. She'd build relationships, but you kind of felt like, okay, can these people be trusted? Is this person actually going to be a suspect or the person who's killing people? What's going on? Luckily, in the second book, the coast is kind of cleared in that small town, and now Paisley is traveling to another town to investigate what might be a disappearance, might be a ghost situation. There's a lot going on in this second book that I don't want to spoil for you, but just know Paisley is left to deal with kind of the emotional and physical aftermath of the events of the first book, which there was a lot of trauma involved with that, and I do like the way that the author kind of kept that theme of dealing with that trauma throughout the book, not only for Paisley, but for other characters as well. So she continues to face her inner demons as she goes and tries to continue her work with these mysteries, these investigations she's getting up to. But now there's a new threat, and she might be in far too deep this time. Like I said, though, I really enjoyed the fact that we are no longer in the same town, but actually in this book, she still maintains a lot of the relationships that she started in the first book. And so throughout this book, she has friendships, she has relationships, and a lot of those it was a lot easier to get invested in because I knew that these were characters that Paisley and I, the reader, could trust. So I loved that about this book. The relationships were done very well in the first book, but in this case, I think just my perspective on these characters was improved to the point that I could trust them and enjoy their dynamics with Paisley a lot more. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this second book, In the Grave Where the Bones Are Still Wet, is that he upped the ante on like every front. So the first book, like I said, was classified as a horror, but in a lot of ways it felt more like a mystery to me with some horror elements. Not this one. This one is much heavier on the horror side. It is still a mystery. There's still an investigation going on, but there were some truly chilling moments in here. There was some disgusting stuff where I literally had to pause reading and be like, "Who? This is nasty. This is nasty and gnarly and just wild." So he really did take the things he started in the first book and he ran with them here. And then additionally, the character dynamics and the character growth is fantastic here. I love Paisley Mott as a character. She is such a strong protagonist, and she just like does the unexpected. She is brave, she is bold, she is willing to put her own life at risk. There were a couple moments in this book where I was like, Paisley, what the heck are you doing? Because you're really risking it, girl. And she did. But I really enjoyed that. I felt like the stakes were really high. I felt very edge of your seat throughout this whole experience. And I think that Kalvin Ellis did an incredible job of building that tension throughout this book. There's so many different plot threads going on in here. And like I said, I don't want to spoil those things for you as this is a second book. And some of the ideas and themes and characters continue to have impact in the second book. So I don't want to spoil any of that for you. But I will say that this second novel in the series is much much more ambitious than the first book. While the first one felt like a mystery that had some interesting elements, like kind of the vlogger, influencer type angle and the Bigfoot, Sasquatch type angle, along with the small town politics and everything going on there, this book has so much going on, and all of it really worked for me. There are certain mysteries that Paisley is focused on, and there are other mysteries that are kind of at play that we, the readers, are privy to that she is not even thinking about, because she slowly discovers that there's a whole lot of stuff going on here, and while she wants to make sure that she's focused on the task that she came here to complete, she keeps getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and she handled that really well, and I think Kalvin Ellis handled that really well also. I also want to mention, in addition to the horror stuff, there's this constant question, both in the first book and the second book, of is there actually something supernatural going on? And I love when authors do that, where there's this whole angle to it where there could be a supernatural thing going on, but the whole time you're like, okay, is it actually supernatural, or is there like a real explanation for this? Kind of like this Scooby-Doo thing where it's like, oh, there's a ghost haunting this mansion, but then at the end they take the mask off and it's this person who's been there all along. There's this question at play both in the first book and the second book, and both times there were moments where I was like, okay, surely this is a person, and then there were other moments where it's like, surely this is not a person because this is crazy. And I love the way that he handled that in both books, but in the second book especially. I also want to highlight that the climax of this book is insane. Like the last 20%-ish of this book, I was just like so keyed in. Like the whole book was really, really engaging to me, and I think that his pacing was really excellent throughout the whole thing, but the last 20% of the book was just like non-stop craziness, thing after thing after thing after thing, and I loved it so much. And like I said, I also love the way that Kalvin Ellis handled a lot of the emotional aspects of this story, both in the dealing with the trauma of the first book, carrying the baggage that the characters came into this series with, and their reactions to the actual events that were taking place in this story. The only gripe I have with that whole thing though is there, like I said, were some truly horrifying moments in this book. In fact, there are some pretty intense triggers, so if you are somebody who struggles with trigger warnings or things like that, feel free to ask me in the comments what trigger warnings to look out for, and I can let you know. But there were some moments in this book where the main character and other characters were exposed to some truly horrifying stuff, to the point that I thought to myself, man, if this was a real person, they'd probably be throwing up right now or passing out or something like that, because it was rough. It was insane. So I will say that is a slight gripe, but at the same time, I can let that go because all of the other emotional beats and character beats were done really, really well in my opinion. And I am left clamoring for book 3. Like there was a pretty significant gap between books 1 and 2, and I am hoping and praying that book 3 gets here sooner because I am more hungry than ever for another Paisley Mott book. This book was incredible. So at the end of the day, I think that this is a fantastic horror mystery book with some really interesting elements of possibly supernatural stuff and possibly not, with great character growth, great character relationships, and stakes that feel so high with a climax that is to die for. So this book is amazing, and to be honest, I'm giving it 5 stars, which I haven't given very many 5-star ratings to this year. New books that I've read, a lot of rereads are getting those, but newer books I've only given out maybe 4 5 stars of the 80 books that I finished this year. So this gets it though. This was an amazing book. I highly recommend it if you enjoy horror books, if you enjoy mystery and can stomach a little bit of tougher stuff. Think like Karen Slaughter, but maybe a little bit of Stephen King in there as well. Go ahead and give this book a try. I highly recommend it. The first book, In the Hills Above the Gristmill, is available in physical, ebook, and audiobook format. And the second book, In the Grave Where the Bones Are Still Wet, is available today, June 18th. And you can get that in physical and ebook, I believe, over on Amazon. I'm pretty sure that Kalvin Ellis will be getting an audiobook for this at some point, but it's not ready yet. That being said, it is a quick read, a fantastic read, and read it however you have to, because it's that good. Does this sound like a book you'd be interested in though? And do you like horror books? If the answer is yes, get this book immediately because you are not going to want to miss it. I think Kalvin Ellis is absolutely incredible, and after this book, I will definitely read anything that he writes. I hope that you check this book out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Leave a like and comment and subscribe if you haven't already. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!